Well, fellas, thank you so very much for coming back and hanging out with us at Fasterproms YouTube channel. All right, so this one, hopefully you guys will get a little bit of laughs on some of my expense here. Now, guys, I've been tuning for about 21 years, and over that time, I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of vehicles. And I've met some really wonderful, absolutely amazing people, and I've met some really good drivers, and then I've met some not so good drivers. Now, usually the kind of protocol of what happens when I tune a vehicle is the customer will bring me the car, we go through it, we fix any sort of problems. Most of the time we tune it on the dyno. Sometimes we used to just do street tunes. And with street tuning, I would let the customer drive. I would try and set up the environment or the location, and sometimes that was out of our hands. And sometimes things just plain went wrong. Well, I had a customer here, and he had zero experience with nitrous. We installed the nitrous kit, and it was an off-brand, used, old nitrous kit. Nothing like what you would get nowadays, and nothing like the quality of something like Nitrous Outlet. This one was on a pretty tight shoestring budget. So I got everything all dialed in, and then we go for a drive. So he gets on it, we're going to somewhere a little north of 100 miles an hour, and everything seems to be fine. And then he lets off and he's like, hey, why is it hanging up a little bit there? And I was like, what are you talking about? So I'm looking down at the data log, and then I realized, man, the throttle's closed, but the RPM's still hanging up really high, and we're still kind of accelerating. This is really weird. And at the moment I said that, the hood blows off the car, and we have a nitrous backfire. It's still hooked, but it goes poof, and then comes back, and we're having flames pouring out underneath the hood, and the fire spreads pretty rapidly. It actually goes to the other side of the solenoid, and now we have a runaway nitrous bottle that is just wide open, you know, being a flamethrower, and we're still going in excess of 80 miles an hour. Flames pouring out of the car, and he's starting to freak out. The flames are starting to get right up into the cowl of the car there. We get the car slowed down, and I barely get my HP Tuner's cord. I yank it off from the other side, and I still had that cord, and it had some molten pieces of stuff that was burning and falling on the cord as I'm yanking and getting out of the car, and the car proceeds to burn right to the ground right there. Definitely a close call, but the lack of experience with nitrous and the fact that that was a freak issue. What had happened was the solenoids had locked wide open and the nitrous continued to spray. Not a pretty situation. All right, fellas, before I had my dyno, I was always tuning over in Tampa at a shop called Proven Power. Now, I had tuned a car called a Brunton Stalker. This thing is like a larger stretched Lotus 7. Extremely small, extremely light. It's like 1,800 pounds, open cockpit, open wheel. It is a sick car. However, this one was an automatic. But again, I'm sitting over there in the passenger seat, and we just got done dynoing it. And we're ripping up and down the road, and the gentleman punches the gas. It actually downshifts back to first gear, and he's, you know, trying to steer, trying to counter steer, and we're coming into a long sweeping right-hand turn. And so the guy loses control of the car with me sitting in it, no helmet or anything like that, go through the median and over into oncoming traffic. And right as we come to a stop, there's a car that comes and jams on the brakes, and it's fairly close to where I'm at in the passenger seat. Most of you guys have probably seen Cletus's video, the highly embellished video version of Scared My Tuner, where I drive, and I think I actually scare him more in that video than he scares me. And after having these kinds of experiences with, usually it's a whole lot of newfound power and or automatic transmissions that people are not used to the new shift point changes and or the added power, a lot of times this can result in that. It is most definitely in my best interest to shake down the vehicle the first time, really give the customer the feel of the car and understand what is going on, good, bad, or otherwise. Well, I used to travel all around the state of Florida doing tuning. There's about 12 different locations that I would go to, and in this last year and a half, I have been doing a lot less of that. This next story takes place in Davie, Florida here. I think it was about December of 2011. I remember that because the car was a 2011 Cadillac CTS-V, and it had heads and cam and a bunch of other modifications. Well, we baseline dynoed the car at 500 wheel horsepower. Now, after working on it for an hour and a half or so, got everything all good and set. The transmission was bone stock, and we pick up 100 wheel horsepower. The car is now making 600 wheel horsepower, which nowadays is incredibly easy. You can do that with bolt-ons. And we redo the transmission. Now, as we're out testing the car, and in South Florida, if you guys are not really familiar with it, they have a lot of canals. Now, this is not exactly a Swift Mud Canal, which is Southwest Florida Water Management District, which some of those canals can be in excess of 80 feet. But this canal, I didn't have any idea how deep it actually was. So we're ripping the car up and down the street and trying to make sure that the shift points are right, the air fuel is right, the car's not knocking. It's doing all the things that it's supposed to do whenever you tune a car. Well, we start from a dead stop here, and the guy just blasts the throttle and the traction control's off. We go and start to lose control. It shifts through like 3 gears here, and he loses control of the car, and we go into the canal. Now, when that happens, water comes up all over the car here, and windshield breaks, the airbags deploy, OnStars on, and the windows go down. Now, I didn't know that the windows went down at first because you get caught up in the moment. My first thought is, I got to grab my computer. Now, I didn't mention here that the customer actually has his son in the back seat. He's about 11 years old. Now, the gentleman that's driving the car is a much bigger fellow than I, and as soon as the water comes over, and now we're getting water in, and I'm sitting in water that's about up to my chest. I'm holding my computer up, and we are going down really, really fast. OnStar is talking to us, and he's not paying attention, just going boom, boom, trying to knock out the door. And the moment the door comes in, we go down really, really fast. So I, by the grace of God, get my computer up and out, and I get outside of the car just as the car is going down here. I barely get the computer above the water here. I have no idea how I jump off to the side of the canal, but it turns out the canal is actually about 6 feet deep. And before we know it, the car is already underwater, and I just get to the bank. I get my computer to somebody that's off on the side of the bank there. I have no idea where they came from or if they saw us or what. Totally lost in the moment. It was a crazy experience, but the guy's son is the first one out, and then the guy gets out. I'm the last one out because I'm sitting there trying to get my computer and all that. I am completely soaked in, and I managed to save my computer. This all happens, and he's like, "Hey, man, what happened? How did this happen?" I was like, "Man," I looked back at the data log. I'm like, "Dude, you never lifted. You just went back and lost control of the car." I lost my cell phone, which was in my pocket. It was completely garbage, and I'm about a half mile away from the shops. He's like, "Dude, you need to go." So I was like, "All right, well, I do got to go. I still got customers back there." So I have my computer and everything, and I'm like, whoosh, 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 half mile run all the way back to the shop. I'm like, "Guys, you're never going to believe this, man. We just totaled this car. It's in a ditch back there." And my wife was freaking out. She couldn't get a hold of me, but somebody else let me borrow the phone to let them know what was going on and all that. It was a wild night, but I did go on to tune 2 more cars that night and get everything done. So it kind of hits me as I explain some of these situations. You can kind of see how I get roped into these kind of deals. All right, this is definitely an all-time dumb one right here. Somewhere about maybe circa early 2005, I was tuning a 2002 Z06, and this was a really, really nasty one. This particular car here, he was like, "Hey, I was out racing, doing some top-end thing, and I hit the rev limiter in 5th. I'm like, "5th gear?" I was like, "Dude, 4th gear's up there." And he's like, yeah. He's like, "I don't have the problem anywhere except 5th. Well, it turns out there's somewhere in the tune that I didn't realize this. Again, this is early on in my tuning career. All the rev limiters are in one spot, and then there's this other area where the rev limiter was for 5th gear only. So the other rev limiters were 6,900 to 7,000 RPM. Well, the 5th gear one was it's 6,600. So I'm like, all right, well, show me. So it's about 6 o'clock, and it's on the Gandy Bridge. This is actually a very infamous bridge in the Tampa area. People come from all around to race on this bridge. It is 3 miles straight concrete, and it is 2 lanes. So before we go out, I find the spot in where the rev limiter could be in 5th. I raise that up to about 69 to 7,000, right where the other rev limiters are. We go out, and this is not an open spot by any means. So we have to go and weave through cars, pretty heavily traveled areas, especially that time of the day. So we're going 150, 160, 170, 180, and then we hit 190 miles an hour in traffic. 10 out of 10 pucker effect right there. Definitely don't want to do that again, and I kind of look back on that. I'm like, you are an idiot. And in hindsight, looking back on that, there have been a lot of people that have died doing dumb things that are very, very similar to what I just described right there. My father used to race on the Gandy Bridge all the way back in the 60s, and right around this time, I really had lived for street racing and was guilty of doing a ton myself. However, 190 is a whole different ballgame. All right, fellas, these next 2 kind of illustrate some of the South Florida machismo, whereas basically too much is just right. Well, I had an '02 Corvette here, and this thing was built super nasty. It was an automatic car, so a non-locking torque converter there, wide open throttle, and made 800 wheel horsepower. I mean, this thing was an absolute beast. And in that particular chassis, that car would probably trap about 154 miles an hour or so, but something like about an 850 to a 9.0 car, depending on 60 foot. Now, the thing did have some big drag radials on it, and as I was tuning it, where the power is going up and up and up, about 100 miles an hour on the dyno. So strapped down, this thing is still spinning, and also probably with some adhesive on the roller. So I was like, I knew this is going to be a little bit tough trying to get this thing to work, and the streets around there were definitely not the best either. But I have to test it on the street in order to make sure that air fuel is the same. Oftentimes the air fuel will change, so I understand this is an inherent risk in doing what I'm doing, but I was like, all right, we got to do it, so let's just try and pedal it and see how we go here. So again, the gentleman is driving, and we're starting to lay into the throttle, and we're going, 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, and we just don't have any sort of traction. Loses control of the car, and then we go into a ditch. But I mentioned this only because I had another car that did a very, very similar thing. Now, this car was about 700 wheel horsepower, a 2008 Corvette with a blower on it and stuff. So we're trying to get some data about an upshift and make sure that that is right on, as well as checking air fuel. Now, as we're doing that, we start to pedal in the car, and just a little bit too much. Lose control of the car, doesn't lift in order to regain control of the car. And this car is on street tires and just cannot correct too much too fast. And we lose control of the car and we spin out into oncoming traffic. And as you guys can imagine, South Florida has a tremendous population. It was very heavy traffic, and again, thank God we didn't hit something, but it was very, very close. Now, I have a number more of these stories, and I figured I might share them at a little bit of a later date, but guys, it's been a wild ride as a tuner and somebody that kind of is just willing to give the wheel to somebody else. Hopefully you guys can understand why I drive most of the time, and I show people, certain limitations and so on and so forth. By no means am I God's gift to driving, but I definitely have an idea what the car is going to do just because I've been there. I've often even had the same conversation with other people saying, if ever the car feels slow, just let somebody else drive it and you sit in the passenger seat. It'll knock your socks off again. Well, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this. This week has been a little bit weird for me. It's a hard week. Well, all of us as men, we have to deal with Valentine's Day. But I also have my son's birthday, which was on Wednesday, and I had my 15th anniversary with my wife yesterday. And if you guys actually aren't on our Instagram, check that out, because I actually have a picture of me and my wife you've never seen, as well as a picture of me without a beard. So follow us on Instagram and check that out. It's definitely worth a look. This one's got to be way more powerful.
I got no mirrors.
I cannot believe that thing just did a burnout. Like that, the other one wouldn't do a burnout at all.
We got our brand new Crown Vic right here.
Yeah, so
Seems like it's making a little more steam.
Yeah, I want to know what this thing makes.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
I'm really curious here.
Baseline, full pull. What did the last one make? 149? Something like that, 145?
142, 182.
142, man, that's rough. It does have a brand spanking new spare right here, man.
That's the OG spare that came in that car.
In the camo car. The legit OG factory. Look at the green stripe to match the green Camolicious. Yeah, this is gonna be sick, dude. Full pull! Full pull, baby! Let's do this thing, make some power! Dude, Lance, this thing almost just jumped off the dyno, dude.
Huh? Oh,
it made 7 more horsepower, but it didn't like it.
I have no idea what happened there.
Dude, you think you can hit that target?
Without aim.
Out of ammo?
400. It outlasted you.
It's probably hot and needs a cold drink.
Alright, hold on. I'm gonna try and feed it right here.
Alright, made a nice sturdy little tape for our funnel there. Now we need some ham.
Yeah, maybe that'll be good.
Don't smell bad.
Jeremy probably bought it last night.
2021. Alright. Smells awful.
Yeah. Oh, that is terrible. That's burnt breakfast.
Oh, gross. We got ham on the ground, man. Ham on the ground. First we had the diced ham. Now we got some cube ham.
Our tape is compromised.
Hang on. We got a ham jam in the funnel. Ham jam in the funnel. Unjam the ham.
We're gonna hand feed it.
Hand feed the ham.
Hand feed the ham.
All right. Oh, you know what that means? She's full, probably. The funnel.
Oh, he wants it like fill it. I don't want this to pop out.
Let's see what happens if you're in Canada and you hit a tree in a Crown Vic and it gets a bunch of maple syrup inside.
You want to hit this?
Don't spill it.
All right, come on, full rev limit. Ready?
Oh! It's blasting smoke out of the vent and it's getting sucked right in. It's pretty funny. And now it smells like marshmallows again.
Yeah. Right, so we've had syrup, we got popcorn. We're gonna do peanuts yet? And we'll have peanut brittle time we get done, yeah.
We're sitting here going wide open throttle, and this thing's only giving us like 30-40% throttle. It's electronic throttle car, and we got no mass air with what we have here, but
How much vacuum is this thing pulling?
enough
Enough.
for a roll of toilet paper.
It wraps around the blade. Hang on. It wraps around the blade, dude. It just totally. Oh, smells so bad.
Yeah, I'm leaning on syrup. What kind of an idiot's idea was it to do this?
Okay, I'm gonna have to hold the brakes on this unit, dude. That thing just
Can't let it free spool.
can't let it spot a TP in there, dude. Now believe how fast it can do that.
All right, give it a shot.
Keeps getting away from me, man. Try it again.
Did you just hear the throttle body? Yeah. It freaked out because we can't close the lid.
Oh no.
Just gotta clean it.
Here, I ain't got you. I got you. Nothing.
Jeremy's looking for the ether. Yeah. It's on the table behind Chris.
Big boy. Do it. Can't have died. Come on. Come on. Oh, she's knocking you, that is. Yes! Yes! Oh, dude, that burns. Oh, it's awful.
Dude, it was like shooting fire out.
Oh my gosh.
Must have been one of them triple rolls.
Look at this side.
It's a freaking disaster. Look at that. What was this?
Look at all of it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it smells so bad.
That is an awful smell.
Yeah, it is.
So for people that are not familiar, real quick, let's get a breakdown of this motor, because this has a special
Very special motor. Junkyard motor, he pressure washed it. Took it apart, completely rusted. Completely rusted. Like there's chunks rusted into the cylinder wall. So I like dingleberried her out a little bit. Took a couple motors apart, got some bearings out of here, some bolts out of here, and slapped it together. Took the crank to the machine shop, he's like, dude, throw it away. Took the block, he's like, not gonna happen. I was like, I'll show you. I went home, had Squirrel give me a hand, he put it together, look at her now. All right.
Oh my God, it really did. It really did. Dude, pop the hood. There's literally a piece of rod right there.
Oh, man.
The face of defeat. Roll it forward. There's chunks of motor.
I wanted to say thank you guys so very much for your support. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do and bring you guys content like this. So please check out our hats, t-shirts, lanyard stickers, and we got a new shirt as well, and it looks absolutely awesome in person. So thank you guys for doing what you're doing. Keeps us doing what we're doing. Recently, I've kind of come across the word that I use a lot, and I really looked into the definition of a whole lot more. Now, I knew what it meant, but it kind of means a whole lot more to me now. The word is resilience. That is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. Regardless of the problem, the ability to bounce back. And oftentimes we experience a problem, and I find myself sometimes when I'm in the wrong state of mind to be cursing the problem. So rather than cursing the problem, focus on the response or action required to restore order. Resilience. All right, song I wanted to leave you with. It's by a band named Suicide Machines, and it often made me think of it because of the very things that I was describing here. Oftentimes we can build ourselves a suicide machine. So the song is Hey. Hope you guys enjoy. God bless you. We'll see you next episode.
Go show off the ball. I know you don't care about here. Take the ball. Go show off. Go show off. Go show off. Good job.